Our theme for July is revealing wholeness. So we're talking about healing. And we started last week talking about how healing may be thought of as revealing the natural wholeness of creation. In other words, wholeness is something that is already present. And so our work, well, your work, is to become aware of it. And we said last week that the way we do that is by training our minds to look at the perfection of the divine, to saturate our thinking with its wholeness until it crowds out every other kind of thinking. And all you're left with is a complete, solid, sure, definite feeling of a power greater than you are that is not only capable of creating wholeness, but is the inherent wholeness of creation itself. And not only that. Last week we talked about how important it is when we're dealing with this revealing of wholeness to stay open to any method that the divine may use to reveal itself, to be open to whatever leads to wholeness and happiness and well-being. In other words, not to be too controlling about how life should show up. So now you're all caught up to speed. That's what we did last week. And this week we're adding a new idea to the conversation from our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, who in this week's assigned reading from Living the Science of Mind wrote these words: "We must forever rid ourselves of the idea that it is the personal human who does the healing." Okay. Well, all right then. If it's not the personal human, it's not me, it's not you who does the healing, then who does the healing? Well, right here is where it's going to be helpful to quit thinking of a who and think instead of a what. Instead of the question, who does the healing, let's ask the question, what does the healing? And I'm going to answer that question at the very end of the message. Because we have to warm up to it, right? It's a big conversation. And I want to start off by saying, there's nothing wrong with thinking about the divine in a personal form. There's absolutely nothing wrong with imagining the divine as the father of creation or the mother of creation or in any other personal form. That's all good. It is, however, very helpful to separate divinity from any kind of human personality. Because humans are tricky little critters, right? They have moods. They have preferences. They have likes. They have dreams. They have aspirations. They have prejudices. They can be jealous. They can be zealous. They can be vengeful. They can be kind. They can be loyal, all over the place. You never know what to expect. Whew. Just look at how we're dealing with the politics of our nation right now. Can you imagine if it were up to us to run this universe? Whoa. Some people are going to be in trouble. If the creative genius of the universe had the same kind of personality disorders, issues that humans do, then it might be just as unpredictable as we are, Can you imagine? Uh-oh, she's in a mood today. Don't ask for a healing. Can you imagine the divine loving some because of their politics but not others? Preferring to reveal its wholeness to those people in this geographic location, with this color skin, with that gender, and on it goes, but not others. We would have no way of knowing what we're dealing with. I could see how we might get nervous. even pleading for help, trying to get attention, trying our best to get into the in group. Please. So it can be helpful in this conversation to think of divinity not so much as a personality, but as a power. But not just any old ordinary power, an ultimate power, unconditional power, the one and only power, the everywhere present power, an absolute whole power, one that is the same yesterday as it is today and will be tomorrow, the one that has no preference kind of power, a power whose nature is wholeness, completeness, perfection, permanence. Now, with that kind of power in mind, we might be able to say something like this. Healing isn't something that the divine does. Healing is something that the divine is. Or let's use the word wholeness. Wholeness is something that the divine is. That's its nature. Whole, perfect, and complete. And we've got to really get into that. That's the starting point. We really have to take that in. And when we do, maybe we can consider then, well, healing could take place when a little bit more of the wholeness of the divine is revealed in my life. And then it could be anything. It could be absolutely anything. It could be in the form of a change in attitude. It could be in the form of the discovery of a new medicine or procedure. It could be in the form of a change in conditions. It could be in the form of a near miraculous set of coincidences. It could be in the form of something whose time has come ending. It could be in the form of a body making its transition, dying into a new beginning. It could be in the form of dropping a destructive habit. It could be in the form of dropping a destructive attitude. It could be in the form of something completely different, new and amazing we've never thought of before. It could be in the form of realizing something that you always knew, but either forgot or missed out on. It could be in the form of accepting things exactly as they are and exactly as they are not. But it is not something that divinity does for one person and withholds from another, because that wouldn't be nice. I mean, really, that wouldn't be worthy of divinity. You know what helps me understand this subject of wholeness is the concept of grace, because it's very similar. You know, grace is something special. I mean, its classical definition is that grace is the free and unearned love that the Creator has for its creation. Or that grace is the unconditional self-givingness of the Creator to its creation. And grace is what was and is and always will be present. So let's have a look at that. It's unearned. In other words, you and I didn't do anything to deserve it. Think of that next breath you're going to take. Go ahead, take it. You don't deserve it, but you get it. And the next one. Go ahead, be greedy, take it. And it's unconditional. In other words, I can't do anything to become unworthy of it, like it says in the scripture. God makes that sun to shine on the just and the unjust without preference. Everybody gets it. And it's always present. You know, we discover that in class. We teach classes here at the center about spirituality, and we all come from different places, school, work, doing our thing, and we come to the classroom, and we have to get on the same page. So we meditate. We take a moment, And we let stillness come. We invite it by being still ourselves, by letting the mental chatter slow down, letting the fidgeting of the body slow down. And then it's so amazing. There's this moment when it clicks in and you can feel it in the room. And all of a sudden we are aware of this deep stillness arrives, this silence arrives. And then we realize, wait a minute, that silence was always present. It was always available. I was just too busy and too distracted, too harried to notice it. But it was always present. Wholeness is like that too. Whether I notice it or not, it continues to be the same as its nature always is. It's the natural state of this universe. And you can't earn that. It just is. And you can't beg for that. It just is. And you can't manipulate that. It just is. But you can get on board with that, with what is. You can start paying attention to what is. And when you and I do, you may realize, wait, just like the silence, it was always here. It was just that I wasn't aware of it. I was distracted by my struggle. I was distracted by my wants and my needs and my wishes and my plans. And I didn't notice that there was a grace-filled, ever-present, perfect silence, and that it was carrying me. Maybe you've had that experience in your life of wanting something really bad. No? Wishing for it, even struggling toward it, maybe even praying for it, and maybe you've had that experience of the more you struggle towards it, the further it stays away, like it's a carrot on the end of a stick. And if you go for it long enough, I don't know, maybe you've stepped over that line where you start begging for it or bargaining. Does anybody remember the Swedish band, the Cardigans? A few people. Well, they had a hit. It was called Love Fool. And the singer's trying to get her lover back, and she sings in the lyrics, it says, love me, say that you love me. And then she says, and I cried, and I prayed, and I begged. And I loved that song. I used to sing along. And then I realized, wait a minute, that is not how it works. I'd say to myself, stop that. You've got to let go of that crying in order to access the stillness that is always present. You've got to drop the struggle in order to turn to the wholeness that is always and already present. Then you'll have a healing. You got to say to yourself, there is a grace-filled, ever-present, perfect wholeness. And it's carrying me. Even though I may walk through the valley of the shadow and death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of adversity. Thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. You probably already know that there is nothing more off-putting in relationships than whining and begging. It doesn't work on human beings. It pushes people away. It doesn't draw us closer together. It doesn't work on human beings. And yet, many people think that the same useless technique will work on the creative genius of the universe. And they cry, and they pray, and they beg. We got to let go of that and access the stillness that is always and already present. We've got to drop the struggle and turn to the wholeness that is already and always present, and then we'll experience possibility and progress, healing, wholeness, grace. And we'll learn to say to ourselves, there is a grace-filled, ever-present, perfect wholeness, and it's carrying me. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, I had a bird. It was a cockatiel. And I tried to tame it. I was so desperate for its affection. I tried everything, I'll admit it. I begged. But the bird would have none of it. And the more insistent I became, the more withdrawn the bird became. And finally I got so furious, I said to it, I own you, I bought you, you owe me. That didn't work either. I realized what was happening and I dropped my struggle. And don't you know, the minute that I backed off, the bird started to sing. See, I wanted the bird to show up according to my picture of perfect. I wanted to sit on my finger and eat tasty morsels. The bird had its own idea of perfect. It didn't want to sit on my finger. It wanted to sing, and when it finally did sing, it released something. It revealed something amazing that had been hidden from me because I was struggling with a specific outcome in mind. And all the while, something wonderful was trying to reveal itself to me, a something wonderful that was better than my little lamb. There have been many things in my life just like that. How about you? Oh, maybe there's something in your life right now that you're reaching for. Oh, and you know, if it hasn't come yet, it doesn't mean that you're bad or that you're undeserving. It doesn't mean that you're a failure at metaphysics. It doesn't mean that the creative genius of the universe prefers somebody else's prayer. It may be, however, that there is some letting go that needs to take place. It could be. And letting go is not the same as giving up. No, it's that moment when the crying and the begging ceases. And in that same moment, we become aware of that which was always present. We become aware of wholeness. And we realize not only is it going to be okay, it is okay, no matter what's going on, just the way that it is, and just the way that it is not. So this healing, this wholeness, is an attitude of mind. It's an attitude in which you're passionate, but you're not desperate. You're participating, but you're not controlling. You're interested, but you're not obsessed. You know what you want, but you're still willing to trust that what you require for the next step of the journey comes to you in what is called perfect right timing. And between now and the answer to your prayer, there is a stillness, a wholeness, a grace. And you realize not only is it going to be okay, but it is okay. And you stop reaching. Do we have any cat owners in the audience? Well, you're going to understand this. 2 cats ago, the cat Fred lived with me. Now notice I didn't say my cat. Because it's very clear he just tolerated me. He taught me about surrendering to what is and accepting what is not. You know, he taught me, I come to you, you do not summons me. Oh my gosh, he had this remarkable ability to look completely disinterested, as if I didn't exist, and I wanted so badly to grab him and hold him and make him be a lap cat. And he would sit millimeters out of reach, tormenting me. All I wanted to do was grab him, and if I was sneaky and reached out, he just, like a feather, jumped out of reach. But when I sat down to meditate, and I became peaceful, when I was no longer reaching and grabbing out for him, jumped into my lap. There he was. I guess his name should have been Grace. Look, you cannot get to him through begging. You cannot acquire him through bargaining. You cannot deserve him through good behavior. You must let him alone so that he can come to you uncorrupted by your plans. These examples of this push-pull paradox is all throughout spiritual life and spiritual learning. It's the same with prosperity learning. If you're studying to open your mind to more prosperity, don't you know you cannot use giving to manipulate life into making you rich? You can't do that. Yet, you cannot receive until you give. You got to surrender to the flow of how things are. You have to clear your mind of the obstructions. You got to participate without being controlling. So, let's get back to the question we started with. What does the healing? Some brilliant metaphysical teacher answered it for us. His name is Eric Butterworth. He said, God does not heal. God is wholeness. Consciousness heals. There's our answer. Our healer is consciousness. So our work then is to develop in us the consciousness of wholeness, or grace, if you prefer. How do we do that? Well, Jesus of Nazareth said that we were to focus our entire effort and concentration, even our intellect, on the divine. That's how. And the way he said it was that we were to love God, which is wholeness, with all of our heart and all of our mind and all of our strength and all of our understanding. And that, he said, was the most important instruction to follow. Why? Well, it takes us back to where we started last week. Because by training our minds to look to the perfection of the divine, by saturating our thinking with its wholeness until everything else is crowded out, then what we are left with is a solid, sure, definite feeling of the presence of a power greater than we are, that is not only capable of creating wholeness, but is the inherent wholeness of being itself in you. How about that? So I invite you to breathe in with me and to exhale, letting your eyes close. As we turn our attention inward for prayer, recognizing that power that is everywhere present, that is unconflicted, to which there is no opposing power, recognizing it as the creative genius of the universe. I dwell upon its qualities, knowing that it is beyond everything I can think up. I still let words such as infinite, all-powerful, everywhere present, expand my thinking so that I can reach a point where I feel my oneness in it. I feel my kinship with this divinity. I sense that where I am and what I am doing and the mind with which I'm thinking and the heart with which I'm loving are all functions of its self-expression. And so I realize that I'm in the right place. This is the moment for me to drop all thinking that hypnotizes me into believing that I am somehow separate from this universe. I let drop from my consciousness all struggle and all strain, all efforting. And as I perceive this soft stillness, and I recognize it was always here, I see too that there is an elegant rightness that I am part of. I feel the life energy waking up in me, causing me to think clearly, to choose wisely, and to take my place in the community of beings, doing the right thing at the right time, for myself, for others, And through this unity, I sense that what I am declaring and realizing for myself is true also for those I love dearly, and for everyone in this sanctuary, and for my city, and for my county, and for my nation, and for all nations, and for all beings everywhere. And I let my mind and heart expand in this awareness into a sense of felt joy, a celebration, as I rejoice in the awareness of knowing oneness a little more deeply today. And together we say, and so it is. I invite you to breathe in with me and to sigh.